Hi everybody and welcome to Restored Hope. Today's video is all about a shoe cabinet restoration. I hope that this inspires you to tackle a project that you have been wanting to take on for a while in your home and just not sure what to do. These videos are going to be great for you if you are just looking for a little bit of inspiration or a little bit of know-how and aren't familiar with some of the products that I will be using. So I'm going to go ahead and talk through what I like about them, what I think worked well, or what I did or did not like about them, and any mistakes that I made and were able to correct. So if you enjoy my videos, please make sure to like and subscribe and then hit that little bell button so you can be notified when I go live with another video. All right, let's see how we transformed this cabinet from kind of bland to pretty grand. Okay, so this is the shoe cabinet that we are gonna upcycle today, and it's a really nice cabinet. I love it. I loved it when we bought it, but it just does not go with the wood tones that we currently have in our house. The barn door is a different color, the flooring is a different color, so I just kind of want to have it blend in a little bit more, maybe match the baseboards, and just give it a more cohesive look in the front entryway. First things first is put down drop cloth. I get messy and I end up having paint on my knees and my hands, so I just want to protect any furniture, flooring that we have and make sure that I don't have to do much cleanup afterwards. All right, so hardware take off. Now, if you like the hardware that's already on the piece, by all means, go ahead and keep it, but I do recommend taking off all of the hardware. It's just easier to paint around it, or I'm sorry, paint it when it's taken off than paint around it. And I'm not going to be using these knobs. I actually purchased some other knobs that I will be putting on here, but I'm actually having a difficult time getting this one off. The screws, for some reason, that came with the cabinet are not the best quality, but again, I'm going to keep the knobs and I'm just going to put them in a little baggie and save them. The second one came off much better. And if you are critiquing the way I hold a screwdriver, by all means, go for it. I critique the way I hold a screwdriver myself. So, but this worked and it came off just fine. And here is a quick look on the paint products that I'm going to be using today. I am working with Dixie Belle brand. I've never worked with Dixie Belle before, but it is a chalk style paint. And I have two brushes. I have one angled 2-inch XL brush, and then I have a Zebra, more of a triangular brush, and that helps get into a lot of those corners and curves and things like that. I have a sanding sponge or sanding bar, however you want to call it, and I have some blue painter's tape, which you will see we definitely struggled with this painter's tape. You'll see it later in the video. I wish I actually wouldn't have used it, so if I could omit that from the video, I would, but it is what it is. And then to top it off, as a top coat, I'm going to be using their gator hide, which is just so awesome to work with, and you'll see that later. Cleaning is super important. This piece was brand new. It wasn't a piece that I had found at a thrift store or a garage sale or anything like that. However, when you buy a piece of furniture, you don't know what oils or what type of material is kind of stuck on there. Plus, when we were assembling it, we got our hands all over it. So I just needed to get it a really deep clean, and I used Simple Green for this one. As you can see, I'm spraying it on even inside of the drawers. I am not going to paint the inside of the drawers, mainly because it's ours, it's our piece. Now, if I were going to be restoring this for somebody else, or if I had a commissioned piece, I probably would paint the inside, but I want to save some paint, so I'm just giving it a nice clean on the inside and the outside. And I'm using a microfiber cloth for this one. anything that's lint-free, I would recommend using. You can buy bags of lint-free cloths at any hardware store. These microfiber cloths you can buy on Amazon, really cheap for a lot of them. I wish I would have cleaned a little bit more, and as you'll see why later in the video, I didn't do as much scrubbing as I probably should have, but c'est la vie. It is what it is. And here's just an example of how I put the painter's tape on. Because I didn't want to get paint on the metal, I decided why not go ahead and put some painter's tape on. In retrospect, I really wish I would have just skipped this entirely, because as you will see, this is where my mishaps happened. And it's easy to just go slower and get those corners or those edges of cabinets or drawers without using painter's tape. Sometimes I like to rush. I have a patience problem, so I thought, well, I'll just do painter's tape and then I don't have to worry about cleanup later, but wish I would have skipped this step. And here is the paint that I'm going to be using. Again, I said I'm using Dixie Belle, and man, I am so impressed with this stuff. I will probably be using it for many, many, many projects in the future. And I decided to go with their fluff. I used this entire 8-ounce jar of it. So if you were doing a bigger piece, you probably want to invest in their larger can, but this worked well for this project. And fluff is kind of a more, has a like a more white tone than their cotton, or I guess I should say it's a little bit more creamy. And then the paintbrush that I used is just a Purdy XL 2-inch paintbrush. It's angled, and I loved this brush. It worked really, really well, and it has a nice short handle so your hand doesn't get cramped, and I usually hold my hand on the metal piece of the paintbrush. So this I got at Lowe's, and I put it in the description below. And so for this first coat, because it is a chalk paint, it is thicker. You are going to notice when you open it up, if you're used to working with acrylics or latex paint, chalk paint is a lot thicker. So for your first coat, I did not water this down, but a lot of times you can. I wanted to have my base coat be a little bit thicker than my subsequent coats. And as you can see, as I'm working this down the piece, I am going in quote unquote the wood grain, even though there's really not a wood grain to this because it is a laminate piece. But you can kind of see those little bubbles, and that is actually where paint is pulling away. I, in retrospect, should have taken a sanding bar a little more to it and gotten some scuff sand on it to make the paint adhere, and I probably should have cleaned it just a tiny bit more. So again, I want to be very transparent with some of the things that I am learning as I go along and paint furniture, because mistakes happen, but it is fixable. I promise. This piece turned out wonderful, and I was able to correct that. For the front, I decided not to go in the wood grain, because again, there really isn't a wood grain, and I just kind of haphazardly slopped this on. Some people watching this might again critique that style, but this is my base coat. I'm gonna go over this. It's a darker piece, so I have to go over it with probably one, at least two more. I ended up doing 3 coats total on this, so just to save time, and also I feel like save a little bit of paint, I just went in these crosshatch kind of movements all around the rest of the piece. And again, here, this is how I'm holding the brush. Super comfortable in my hand, and I didn't get any cramps the entire time while I was painting. The other thing that I will say is, if you are concerned about getting paint into those little knob holes, go ahead and just take a toothpick after you're done with each coat and wipe it out. My knobs went in just fine. I didn't take a toothpick in there, but I was able to get the knobs in just perfectly fine with just a little bit of elbow grease. The other thing you can do is, if you are deciding to use a different knob that it has more holes, you can, or different holes in different directions, you can go ahead and wood putty these and sand them down and then just paint right over them. But my knobs actually fit perfectly with how I am going to change up this cabinet. So now I'm on the last panel here, and I decided to go long strokes on this one just because it is easier for me to do it on the really long ends of this. But again, you can do it haphazardly, just whatever works on your first coat. And I'll go ahead and speed this up. And then again, just please go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel and follow along with any other projects that I am doing. I'm moving on to my second coat now, and I'm actually going to water my second coat down. And you might be thinking, why would you water paint down? Again, chalk paint is very thick, so I'm just pouring it into a cup. For this purpose, I used my son's dinner cup. We have thousands of them, so I think he can spare one. And it was the perfect size and the perfect amount of paint. And I am actually going to use this control spray mister bottle, and I actually have this listed in the description below if you want to purchase it. It gives a really nice controlled spray, so it's not something that just shoots water in there and has paint splatter all over. And then I decided to, between coats, put my paintbrush into a Ziploc bag. You can buy these specific bags called brush baggies, but a Ziploc bag is way cheaper, and I'm a penny pincher. So as you can see, this is the consistency that my second coat is going to be. It's thinner. It's a lot thinner, but it's going to go on a lot smoother too. And one nice thing is that when you're using water to dilute, it actually makes your brush strokes that much less to identify. So that's a really nice thing. If you are somebody that really likes brush strokes and you want to add that into the texture of your piece, by all means, just continue on with a thicker coat, but I wanted to really smooth this out. And as I go throughout the piece, I do spray my brush, and I spray the actual piece of furniture as well, just to keep it really nice and damp throughout the entire project. My second coat was going on much better than my first coat. It wasn't bubbling up as much, so I was really, really pleased with that. You will see later on in the video that I ended up having to completely redo this side because the mistake that I made, and do not follow in my lead here, is I did not take the painter's tape off in a timely manner. So I should have taken it off just before the third coat was fully dry, because what happened was it actually peeled the paint, and it caused a ton of tearing of the paint, and I just ended up having to redo this side. Thankfully, I only had to redo one side, which was this one because it was affected the most, but I was able to repair the opposite side of this cabinet by just doing some touch-up paint, so not that big of a deal. And it is still bubbling up a little bit, but again, that third coat is really going to take a hold of that. Now again, if this was a commission piece, if I was doing this for somebody else, I would completely redo it altogether. And before I start on my third coat now, I'm actually going to do a little scuff sand, and I'm using a sanding pad. And this is a sanding pad by Surf Prep, and you can buy them in 4 packs. They come in a coarse, a medium, and a light. And I am using the red one, which is the light one. And I'm just doing a very, very fine, not a lot of pressure, quick sand on this one. I want to create a good adhesion point for the paint to stick for my final and third coat. Now you can do this between each coat. You can do it between your first and your second. I decided to just do it between my second and my third because the paint was going on. The nice thing is too, with this light one, you can actually get rid of some of those imperfections, and maybe there's some paint splotches on the sides or the corners that you just kind of want to smooth out to have a better texture and a better look overall. And I definitely put on my finest outfit for you all. Just kidding. I am in the grubbiest clothes I own because I get messy. I should also state too that I waited about an hour between each coat. Chalk paint dries very, very, very fast. Sometimes you can do the next coat in 20 to 30 minutes. I waited an hour between each coat. And then I'm taking a tack cloth. This is a really sticky cloth. You can find it at any hardware store, and it really just removes all that dust and debris from the sanding. Really, really important to do because you don't want any of those particles getting onto your last coat. And you can even do this again before you start the project. Not a bad idea at all, but just taking this tack cloth is really important. So I am onto my third coat finally, and the drawers looked awesome. There was no paint bubbling up, so I really didn't have to do much. And again, I'm just spraying because I'm diluting my paint. And my third coat, I actually diluted a lot. Here you can see the mistakes. As I peeled off the painter's tape, here is where the paint started pulling up. So I ended up just removing all of this and redoing it. And for my top coat, I am using the Gator Hide by Dixie Belle. This is a water resistant. If you're in a high traffic area, it's really a good thing to use. And it's really easy to apply. And there's really no odor to it, which is one thing that I really love about these chalk paints is there are no VOCs, so you can paint inside. And I'm just using the blue sponge to apply this. This is from Dixie Belle as well, and the link to the description is below. It's about $3, and you can use it over and over and over again just with washing it out. And here are my knobs that I decided to purchase. Because our home is a more coastal theme, I decided to go with these cute nautical knots, and I'm really, really excited about them. They were bought on Amazon. I think I got a 12-pack for close to $7, so really inexpensive. I think this whole project in total costs me about $40 to do. So this upcycle was very inexpensive. So the knobs are on. There's just a washer and a bolt. And as you can see, the knobs are a little bit longer than the drawer front. So we are actually just going to take a bolt cutter because I don't want any injuries as people try to put things into this cabinet. But here we are. It is done after some painstaking mistakes. But again, everything is fixable. So please, if you're worried about making a mistake, just go for it. Just do it. The mistake here I made is having paint on the floor. Don't do that because that could be messy. Again, I said I'm a messy painter, which is why I have a drop cloth, but this piece turned out perfect. So here's where we were before. This nice cabinet that worked okay. I just didn't like the color of it. I wanted to change it up. The barn door is different color and our flooring is a different color wood, and it just needed to blend and be a little bit more cohesive and a little bit more hidden in this corner. So here we are now. I just love how this turned out. and it's really simple. The one thing that I really liked about it is that this metal hardware actually matches the metal hardware on our barn door, so that kind of ties in together. So thank you for watching, and again, go ahead and subscribe Restored Hope on YouTube.